Tabitha. Now, the industry is the economic foundation for many rural communities as well, and without it, many will be faced with difficult financial decisions, as you can imagine. St. Paul, an island that's critical location in the Bering Sea, is the largest snow crab processor in the nation, by the way. It's home to less than 400 people who live on the island, but lost more than $3 million in tax revenue last year because of the king crab season closure and the diminishing of the snow crab harvest. And that was about half its year budget, according to the Seattle Times. So guys, we want to take you straight to the people that this is obviously affecting the most. So we're bringing in a third generation fisherman, Gabriel Prout. Gabriel, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it. As I understand it, you and your family heavily invested in the snow crab industry. So it is literally your livelihood. Talk to us a little bit about what kind of impact this is going to have on you.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Glad to be here. My father's been a 40-year fisherman out in the Bering Sea. I fish alongside my two brothers on board the 116-foot Silver Spray. We bought into the boat as 50% partners in the summer of 2020. We bought a sizable amount of crab allocation quota for the fishery to fish aboard the Silver Spray to the tune of $4 million. And now we're faced with a complete collapse of the snow crab fishery, as well as a closure in the king crab fishery for the second year. So it's looking to be a very difficult year ahead for us to try and figure things out and make ends meet.
Okay, so when you do think ahead, what comes to mind? I mean, what other options, if any, do you have when it comes to, making money this season? What can you do?
Yeah, there's a couple other fisheries we can participate in, but obviously when you take 60 boats off the Bering Sea, they're all going to be strict scrambling to try and find those same opportunities. So really, we need a rapid financial relief program to help fishermen in this situation across the country. If we don't have the funds needed to maintain these boats, it's incredibly expensive to maintain these boats, even while they're sitting at the dock. If we don't find a way to get some financial relief, we're at risk of losing our second and third and even fourth generation fishermen.
Wow, and so it's of course not just your immediate family. I mean, what does this mean for the towns and the communities that depend on the crabs so much, crab season?
Yeah, it's not just the crews that are going to be affected that go out there and work and risk their lives on the Bering Sea. It's also their families and their children and the communities where they deliver the crab and the processors who process it, and even the people who buy it in the supermarket. This is going to have far-reaching effects and consequences for many, many individuals. It's not just going to be localized to Alaska. It'll have far-reaching effects down the entire West Coast to Washington, Oregon, California. There's many fishermen that hail from those areas, and they're going to be really hurting the next year due to the closure.
Wow. And building up to this, I mean, have you been noticing a change in crab populations year on year, or have you heard previous generations talk about their generation and their time versus now?
Yeah, the fishery for the Bering Sea snow crab, as well as the king crab, it's a long history. You can go back to 4 or 5 decades, 50 years 60 years even, of history for this fishery. Between the years, I believe, of 1990 and 1994, they harvested over 1 billion pounds of snow crab out in the Bering Sea. The most recent allocation of that quota in, I believe, 2020, before the crash of the snow crab, was 45 million pounds. So it's still a very far away from the days of 310 million pound years. Same thing for king crab. Mm-hmm. It's been declining for the past 6, 7, 8 years, and finally, with last year's closure and now a repeat closure this year, we're really trying to scramble to figure out what we're going to do about that. And you've seen the slow decline in king crab populations, but the real surprise was the absolute collapse of the snow crab. No one really knows what is going into that. It's probably a multifaceted issue, sure. Maybe a little bit due to warmer waters, a little bit of climate change, and a little bit of habitat destruction as well from other sectors out there on the water.
And I mean, I keep bringing it up, you're talking about a job that's been in your family for generations. Do you wonder if that might not last next generation or two? I mean, do you, even for your own livelihood and your own future, do you wonder if you're going to continue doing this?
Yeah, it's hard to look too far ahead when you're trying to just figure out how you're going to survive, how my brothers are going to survive, what we're going to do with our fishing vessel if there's no crab to catch. We're looking at other options and different fishery sectors. You know, we participate in the Prince William Sound summer tendering season. You know, we go over there and haul several million pounds of fish. And as I mentioned earlier, this is going to have far-reaching effects, not just on the crab industry, but salmon industry as well. You take off 60 vessels that are hauling an average maybe of 200 to 250 million pounds during the summer. It's going to be hard to find a replacement for those vessels to go out and haul that back and forth, especially if they go bankrupt or are forced to sell out of their vessels. Those vessels might not be sticking around here. So is going to have far-reaching effects.
Sure. As somebody who's experiencing this and being affected by this firsthand, I mean, what do you want people to know from your perspective? I mean, what's being left out of the conversation right now?
I think one of the things that people really overlook until a time like this is some type of immediate financial relief program for fishermen. Fishermen deliver millions of pounds of product to the docks. We pay in millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars to state taxes by delivering our fish and our product and our crab. So some type of financial relief program dedicated to a time of disaster like this, especially in relation to unknowns such as climate change or what impact that has on the fishery. We really need to bridge the gap right now because, as I mentioned earlier, we're at risk of losing our second and third generation fishing families if we don't have some type of financial bridge to get us through these tough times right now.
Of course, we hope you make it through just fine. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for coming on and explaining the situation, albeit a very difficult one, to our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.